Hi everyone, Diane here. Welcome to my channel. Today I am going to paint an autumn leaf with a couple of acorns, and we're going to just let the colours run and do what they want to do inside the leaf shapes. And so this is a completely uncontrolled sort of wet in wet sort of leaf, and we'll see how it goes, shall we? I'm going to use my Kuretake set here. This is the main 48 set. It has quite a few browns and reds and some yellows and oranges and some greens and blues, and it's got everything actually that you would expect, unlike the Art Nouveau set, which I also use quite a lot, but which is not, doesn't jump out at you as being autumn, does it? No, not really. So we won't use that one, but we will use this set. You could use any set of paints you've got that's got some browns and things like that in it, which would be most things. So I'm just going to push this out of the way for a sec, because I'm going to do a quick sketch of some leaves. What paper I'm using at the moment is Etival Aquarelle watercolor paper. It's cold pressed, grain fin, as they say in France, which is what this is. It's a French paper. It's a cellulose paper, but it is a good paper. Not all cellulose paper is bad, is it? So let's put a stem up through the center of the page like this. And then we're going to have one leaf coming off here, another leaf coming off here, and another one here, and one main one here. And then down here, we're going to have a couple of acorns. So it's just literally a wet in wet exercise. So in order to draw a reasonably realistic oak leaf, we just need to do this, which is not particularly tricky. I'm sure you can manage this, and if you feel like you want some guidance, as we always do, I will put a sketch of this on the website for you to download if you wish. If you're new to painting, you might hesitate a little bit about this. Doesn't matter if they go a bit funny like that, because they often are unevenly lobed or damaged, but the lobes are smaller near the base of the leaf. So, and then we're going to tuck one in behind here. So we'll just come out here and if you hear any strange noises in the background, it's my small dog. So we'll just put in some veins, main veins. We don't want too many, just as a guidance. And we won't put those in until after we put the paint on, but we just want to indicate that the veins tend to go up towards the ends of the lobes, I think. Zen quiet. Okay, and then the stem, the stick, the twig, that's the word, has got a sort of rough, crunchy sort of outline. And then down here, we're going to do some little acorns. I'll do some little cups that the acorn sits in. And then the acorn itself comes up like this. Often has a sort of little point on the top. They usually grow in couples. So we do another cup there. And like that, and maybe we'll even do 3. And then there's a chunky little stem. Okay, so there's our sketch. I'm not going to use a big brush for this because I'm going to use lots of different colours. So I'm going to use a relatively small brush, and what I'm going to do, and I'm hoping this is going to work, first thing I'm going to do, you could use a water brush for this if you wanted to, by the way. If you're traveling or something like that and you don't have a place for a big jar of water, you can use a water brush. Some people like to use them anyway. So I've wetted the leaf shape, and I'm going to put some green and some yellow and some orange in this one. So we'll pick up a little bit of sort of medium medium green. This is sap green in the Kuretake set, and I'm just going to drop that in and let that run. And so that obviously leaves are green before they go brown. So we'll add a bit more green, a different green. And we're not going for realism here. You have to remember that. We're just going for something hopefully reasonably attractive. So this is sap green deep. So we'll put that in a couple of places. And then I'm going to switch to yellow. So I've got my nice lemon yellow here. So we just put some of that in. And some down here. And then let's have some orange, cadmium orange. And then maybe a bit more green here. And then I'm going to pick the whole thing up and let it move around a bit. Not too much, because if you let it move too much, obviously it will just go grey. And if you think you've got a little bit too much in some places, too much colour I mean, you can always lift it out with a thirsty brush, like that. Adjust it a little bit too if you want, something like that. So then if you want to make the outside edges a little bit more wavy, a little bit more natural, you can go around and just adjust them a little bit like that. You don't have to do that though, but you can if you want. Okay, and you could, if you wanted to, at this point, you could add a bit more of a very dark green. I quite like this forest green. Just put that in a couple of places where you want it to be darker. And then you have to basically leave it alone. And you go on to the next leaf, leave it alone and wait, because it will change, obviously. It will change. So the next one, this one here, we're going to do it in all reds and oranges, no green. So we'll just go over it first of all with water. Might want to put a little bit more orange in there. Okay, so let's pick up some orange and let's go in. That first moment when you put the pigment into the wet paper is quite interesting, isn't it? Always is. And then we go for some darker cadmium red. And let's have some burnt sienna. And let's have some raw umber. A bit more orange perhaps here. Might want to put a little bit of that in here too. Still very wet. It's going to take a while for that to dry, so we'll leave that. So what I'm going to do, I'm planning to do, is I'm going to leave this while I go and have lunch. So this is going to be step number 1. And then I'll come back after lunch in about 2 hours and see what's happened. So now I've wetted number 3 and I'm going to put in some orange. Whee, look at that. And some green, and let's use olive green, shall we? How's olive feeling today? And then the gap I'm going to fill in with some yellow. This is Aureolin. Just put that there, and we're going to let that one do its own thing. And then behind here we've got another one which I'm going to do in brown. And I'm going to wet but not go up to, except there. The idea was not to touch, but I've touched, so whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm going to put in some raw umber mixed with Indian red down here. And we'll just let that go all the way up. And then I'm going to pick up some cadmium red of some sort and put that up here. A bit more brown in places. And we let that run, do its thing. Okay, so then some raw umber mixed with black for the twig. And we're going to do that all kind of chunky and rough. And let that join into the leaf in a few places. And then for down here, we'll make the twig a little bit lighter than that one, but still chunky. And then I'm going to do a greenish, lightish brown for the cups, and then a nice warmer brown for the actual acorns. And we can put some line work on these afterwards to give the effect of the little dots on the cups and the lines that usually decorate the actual acorns themselves. So that's a good start. And I'm going to let that dry and come back afterwards. And what we could do if we wanted to at this point, if you feel like it, is put in some scratch marks for some of the veins. And you can use one of these Japanese pens. Well, it's not really a pen, it's actually for working with clay. Or you could use a dip pen, one with a metal nib. And what you can do is you can just draw in where the vein is going to be, and you'll find that that will come out either lighter like that or darker. And then you can do obviously the smaller ones as well. It's definitely a good way of putting the veins in. Where it's a bit drier, you get light ones, and where it's wet, you get dark ones. So you do get a bit of variety, so that's quite nice. And then afterwards, when we come back, we can do some more veins with ink or pen, or paint rather. And I think those are already dried. You can scratch into the stem a little bit to put a bit of lights in there if you want. Yep, and so I'm just going to leave that now until, like I say, until it's nice and dry. And it looks as if it's going to be fairly fun and the colours are nice and bright. It's always a bit kind of at this point because you know it's going to dry lighter. So you just have to have a bit of faith and hope that it will be okay. So we'll see. And I'll be back soon. So I've had my lunch and I'm back now. And looking at this, it's completely dry. So what we need to do first is to take off all the pencil marks. And I'm using a kneaded eraser here. This is a kneaded with a K, kneaded. Or you could call it a kneadable eraser, I suppose, depending on how you feel. And so the way to use this is you've got two options. You can sort of roll it into a kind of sausage, and then you can roll it over your work like this, and it will pick up the graphite. Or, well, the three ways, I suppose. You can use it like an ordinary eraser and rub, but that doesn't work as well. I think the best way is just to press down, press and lift all over. And the difference between this and a regular eraser, unlike this, is that when you use this, of course, you get these bits which appear, and then you have to get rid of them. And it is possible using one of these to rub away some of your paint as well. But if you use a kneadable or kneaded eraser, which you can get, they come in little plastic boxes like that on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below. And I'm just going over here where the graphite shows as much as I can to get it off without damaging the paint layer. And it's not too much of a problem if some of the lines remain, I don't think. I don't mind them actually, but some people don't like the lines. In which case, the best thing to do really is to get rid of most of them before you even start painting. And that way, of course, they won't get hidden by the paint and you'll be able to get rid of them, but you just have to look a bit more carefully at where your lines are. And then the other thing to do possibly is to just work without a sketch, but that's not always possible. So that will do, I think, for now. I've got most of them off. Just have a quick sip of my tea. Now I want to put a little bit of detail on these. So I'm wondering about whether to use my Inktense pencils just to sort of draw some very light parallel lines on these acorns. It's one way of doing it. I could use ink. And then I want to do some, this is a very dark brown. Let me just sharpen that pencil. Some little tiny circles on the cups to show the texture. And then we'll put a little bit more dark brown at the base. Yeah, and we can wet that if you want, having put the pencil in exactly the place where you want it. This is one of the advantages of these watercolor pencils. You can then, having done that, you can use a small brush, relatively small, and we'll see what happens, and it should work. So that's okay, and then we can just darken these up by wetting them a little bit. And then if you want to, you can put some shadow I'll use a darker one on your twig along the edge, using that as well. And then when you wet it, it goes darker still. So that's quite nice. I can put in the little joining thing there. And then we could darken one edge of this twig too, if you wanted. And then if you want to make the center veins a little bit more organized, you can come in with your pencil and go over the scratched lines if you want. It's not absolutely necessary to make them any darker. They'd be fine the way they were. But then you can also, using the pencil, it's easier to sort of just, if you want to put in more of the smaller veins, you can do that too. Easier to use a pencil than a brush. And you can go around the outside edges, make them a little bit more funky if you want. You can use different colours if you like. Use this colour. And you could, you could add a little bit of extra colour, or where you might feel it's a bit boring, like that. And then you can also come back with your brush and sort of smooth that out a little bit. It's one good way of giving yourself a little bit more texture without committing yourself to the paintbrush with paint on it, because that can sometimes go quite wildly wrong, I think, for this kind of thing. So we can sort of like darken it there a little bit, and then just gently, it's quite an interesting process, and you can take as long as you like over it, of course. Make it very subtle. You could put a little bit of this, smooth that out a little bit, make them a bit more shiny. Can go along the shadow side of the veins like that. Whoops, where did that come from? I must have dripped some water. Somebody asked the other day, why do artists insist on putting spatter on their paintings? Maybe because they accidentally put their hand-fisted fingers in it and made a mess. So I think there's enough detail in these colours here, and the veins have stood out quite nicely by using the scratching method, and this one too. So I'm just going to smooth this out a little bit here. And then I'm going to leave it at that. Quite happy with that. I think that's okay for the first autumn leaves of the season, with some acorns, oak leaves they are, of course. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed that. Give us a like and subscribe and turn on notifications if you feel that way inclined. And come with me on a journey through the autumn months, starting now, really. And we can have fun looking at all these lovely colours that come up around about this time of the year. So I'll let you go now, and I will see you again soon. I'll say bye-bye for now, everybody. Bye-bye.